You're listening to The Fox Den. I'm Nathan, and this is where we cut through the noise to bring you the best in life lessons and business strategy. We're connecting the world one conversation at a time. Let's jump into today's episode. Talli Koren, welcome to The Fox Den.
Hey, Nathan. Thank you for having me.
My pleasure. Why don't we start off telling our audience what it is that you do and why you're sitting with us today?
Sure. So, I'm a storytelling coach. I help teams, executives, and founders craft compelling stories. I help them think about what their messaging strategy is and how to make sure they land that with maximum impact so that what they actually do is generate buy-in, that they get the yes, whatever that yes is.
So, how do you allow the person that you're coaching to find that spark on the big stage, and how do you translate their natural charisma into a formal presentation environment? It's very difficult for people to do that.
Yeah. So I don't only work with formal presentations, I work with a wide variety of presentations. And people sometimes think that a presentation has to mean that, you're up on a big stage or it has to mean that you have slides. And that's not true, right? Even when you introduce yourself, you're presenting yourself. That's a presentation. Like, we don't have to call it a presentation, but a presentation can be any time that you're speaking, right? Any time that you're presenting information, any message that you have. And specifically around the big stage, I do get a lot of people who perhaps are nervous on a stage or shy. I can give you one example. I've been working with a fantastic accelerator, high tech, for a couple of years, and where over there I was working on preparing all the finalists who go up to the showcase. So over the course of 2 years, I prepared dozens of finalists. And the key to helping people shine on stage is the same way you get them to shine off of stage when they're talking to others and presenting information, is to actually look for what is their truth, right? What is their truth? What is the message that they're most connected to, right? Do they feel it in their bones? Does it resonate with them? And when you go through that process of helping people find out what their truth is, why they're doing what they're doing, why they want to get out there in front of these people, what's the gospel for them,
Right.
you find that the confidence follows along, right? You find that when they are most connected to themselves, their authenticity shines through. And that's what we're looking for, right? A lot of times people think, I wasn't born for the stage. I'm not a natural speaker. I'm an introvert. I can't be any good at that. That's not true, right? Introverts make excellent speakers because they bring their own authenticity, their own personality. And that's really the key. The key is, how can I inject myself into this? And how can I make that shine through?
So that's interesting that you talk about authenticity, showing up with your truth, because I'm going to ask, is presence something that you are born with, or can it be learned? Is it a set of behaviors that you can go to a seminar and be coached in it as you do? What do you think about that?
So, we can look at history and see examples, right? Take Steve Jobs. Yeah, everyone thinks, wow, Steve Jobs, that's, the top of the line. You can't get any better, right? That's the most amazing presenter in the tech world that everybody brings an example. If you look at Steve Jobs' early work, his early presentations, you can definitely see a learning curve there that he's done, right? It's not that he was shit at the beginning. That's not the case, right? He's definitely had natural charisma, definitely a gifted storyteller, but you
Yeah.
can see the learning curve, the development that he went through over years and years. You can see that he practiced his craft, right? And if you Google it and look it up, experts say, and many people say, that Steve Jobs spent countless hours working on every presentation, every launch, every time he was on stage. It wasn't something that just happened because he's a natural speaker. Not at all, right? He looked at what is his strategy for his messaging, what is the hook, what is the intro, how is he structuring it, what's the impact he wants to be making, how does he want his audience to feel. And he is known to have relentlessly rehearsed so that what you're seeing is not something he naturally put together improvisationally. What you're seeing is the product of weeks and weeks of preparation. So for anyone who thinks, you're just born with it, that's bullshit, right? And even if you are a gifted speaker, you want to hone your craft like anyone else. You want to be the best, and that takes work.
So it's funny you spoke about him practicing his craft and his hook when he gave his keynote speeches. I mean, this is the gold standard for all the tech companies now are copying what Steve Jobs used to do, right? What's the biggest mistake people make in the first 60 seconds of a presentation? Because isn't that the most crucial portion of a presentation?
It is. It's a very, very crucial point. Definitely the most crucial point, because if you haven't grabbed their attention, we in the biz say 30 seconds even, and some will even say 10 seconds, right? If you haven't grabbed their attention, if you haven't hooked them, you risk losing them for the entire time you're up there. So even if you get super interesting 1 minute in, if you've lost them after 30 seconds, they're not hearing you when you're 1 minute in. That is definitely one of the most common mistakes. And the mistake specifically is that people don't hook their audience and that they don't introduce their audience. They don't give them a reason to listen.
Mm.
What they do instead is just give information. And usually that information is in the structure of a list. That's the most common mistake that I see is people come up and they say, hey, my name's Talli and we're going to talk about this, and then they get into it, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And what I'm suggesting is that you do two things when you get up there. First is that you hook your audience, right? That you find, it doesn't have to be clever or gimmicky, but that you find something that will actually hook their interest. I was just speaking to a product manager, a head of product, before our session, which was why I was running late.
Right.
And we were talking about how to hook her own team, right? And she said to me, well, why do I need a hook if it's just a team update, right? I hear this a lot from professionals in tech. It's just an update. It's just a status update. Even an update is a story, right? And what brain research shows us is that if we don't shift it into a story, if we don't talk about the why behind it, if we only stick to the what, as many professionals do, our chances at engagement drop drastically, right?
Right. Right.
In fact, within an hour of when you're done speaking, 90% has gone to the trash, up to 90%.
Yeah.
But if we are managing to engage them from the outset with a hook that speaks to why we're doing this, right? That actually puts the thread as a story. So for example, in what she was doing, she was showing them, okay guys, here's the feature we worked on, here's what it does, here's what you need to do, that's the end of the update. And instead, we turned it around into, you guys have all been working hard on this for the last 3 months. It's finally here. The reason that we're going to be able to grab the attention of our customers and to show them the offering in a way they've never seen before, that is going to level us up in comparison to our competitors, right? And of course, there's more technical detail that went into it. But when you start with the why, when you start with both a hook and why you're here, which I often call a big idea, what you're doing and how you're doing it, and you give place for actually introducing your concept, that's very different than just getting into it.
Are you familiar with Stephen Sinek? He has
Yes,
a book, Start With Why.
yes, it's Simon Sinek.
Pardon me, Simon Sinek. Pardon me.
Yes,
Start With Why. It's a great.
it's an excellent book, and it's the golden circle, right? And so
Yeah.
it's starting off with the why, and starting off with the why also actually gives you the opportunity to tell a story, because the what, which many people start with, the what is just the dry surface. The why is the meaning, and that's what's conducive to a narrative thread.
I notice when you're speaking very articulately, somewhat slowly to really enunciate your words. You're using hand gestures. Is this all something that you are consciously doing in your daily life, or is it because you're now on the podcast and you're trying to show us, not just tell us what to be doing here?
So it's a great question. I think some of it has already just become part of how I speak after many years of training. Um, I'm very aware, even when I'm in one-on-one with someone, with a trainee, I'm very aware that I want to be engaging, that I want what I'm saying to land. And I'm aware that that means slowing my pace, speaking clearly, making direct eye contact, even if I'm in a virtual environment, right? Looking at the camera, not the screen. I'm also aware of the fact that I want to use my body, even virtually, right? I don't just want to be a floating head. I want to bring in motion and movement, which also brain research shows us is the number one most compelling thing in a presentation is movement.
Mm.
So, so yes, I'm doing it partly because we're on a podcast, but partly also because that's how I train and that's how I speak, and that's kind of already ingrained in the way that I speak. If I'm speaking with friends, do I speak this way? That's a good question. I try to have a balance of being authentically me, but I'm very aware of wanting to make the impact and wanting to land.
Well, that's interesting because I see you're making these hand gestures, and if you were to give an advice for people to really hone in their physical cues and their body language, what would you say to people to focus on? Is it just more showing the hands, and or is there more to it than that?
So there's definitely a lot more to it. It's a great question. A really important exercise that I would invite you to do, and any of our listeners or viewers today, is to actually record themselves naturally speaking, whether they're speaking to a friend or, even doing it on their own in front of the camera, to just record like a 2-3 minute segment. And then to watch it back on mute. If you
Mm,
watch it back on mute, you're able to focus solely on your body language, on the visual, right? And when I look at, leaders in the tech world, in the finance world, in the health space, I work with a wide variety of leaders. You will often see a common thread across the industries, especially when people are in a virtual meeting. There is no body language, right? You will often see that people are just sitting like this and nothing else
right,
happens and they're just talking, right?
right.
If you go a step deeper, You will also see what's happening on their faces, right? So movement isn't just our body, movement is also our face. So you can also analyze when you're watching this video on mute, what's happening on your face? What's happening in terms of your facial expression? And you can even go a step further. You can do that exercise presenting something professional, if it's a couple of slides or if it's just speaking. And then you can do the same exercise telling a personal story and telling it to a friend, even if the friend is just in your mind.
Right.
And what you want to see is what from your natural, authentic self can you introduce into your professional world, right? And this goes back to the question you just asked me. You said, you're speaking slowly, you're articulating, is this how you are? I try to, as much as I can, bring in myself, right? Bring in myself. If it's suddenly having certain gestures, right? If it's having emotional engagement, right? If I'm enunciating a certain word, if I'm adding drama to another word, the more that we are ourselves, the more that we are authentic, the more that shines through. People are drawn to authenticity, it's compelling. So checking out what's happening with my gestures when I'm natural, what's happening with my body language, facial expression, and gestures when I'm professional is a good starting point to figuring out how to begin to hone your body language.
Let me ask you, do you speak Hebrew?
I do. Yes, I'm Israeli.
So there's an expression from the Ethics of the Fathers. You might have heard of it. I just was thinking about that as you were talking, and it goes something like "Milim she ba mi halev nechnas et halev," which
Right.
basically translates
Right.
as words that come from the heart enter the heart. Have
That's
you
right.
heard have you heard that one before?
I have, yes.
And this is something that was written down many, many years ago, maybe even over 1,000 years ago. This is something that carries weight and importance all the way up to the present day. If you're
100%.
if you're speaking and you're not being authentic, the listener is going to see right through you. Is that right?
Listen, that's why we started off with when you talked about your first question and, what to do when you go on stage. We started off with the more connected you are to your truth, the more it will resonate with the audience. Because the more connected you are to your truth, the more you are in your heart, right?
Yes.
And so speaking your truth comes off so compelling because it's your passion. It's what you're excited about. And that resonates not only from a messaging perspective, that doesn't only help you know what you're going to say and then not have to memorize it because you own it. It also helps you with your confidence, right? The two work together, right? They can never be separated. The idea of what I say and how I say it.
Mm,
And so the more that I'm believe in my
right.
heart
Right.
from the content perspective, the more I will be believe in my heart from the confidence perspective.
Hmm. So it sort of plays in both sides, your confidence and also the ability to be really understood and taken seriously.
Right. And to own your message. A lot of people try to just memorize messages, right? So a lot of
Yeah.
people write scripts, and that's really challenging and often doesn't work, right? Because then we have to memorize, we can black out, we're not sure what we're saying. It also
Right.
can come off scripted, it can come off robotic, right?
Literally scripted, right?
Yes, yes. So what we want to be doing is asking, where does my passion meet this topic, right? What am I passionate about here with this thing that I'm going to say? What's my truth, right? And how can that passion move my audience? Because we can't separate our passion from our target audience's passion, right? we have to always keep them in mind. When we're speaking to an audience, what we're looking for is that intersection between our passion and theirs, our story and theirs. Where do those two meet?
Mm. And what about a leader who struggles with monotone delivery? There's a lot of leaders who have struggled with having a lisp. I don't know if you've seen that movie, The King's Speech,
I have seen it.
with King George VI, and he had a stammer. He could
Yes,
barely talk properly,
yes.
and
And
he
he
was,
had an excellent speaking coach.
and he had a great speaking coach, and he overcame it. Even going back to the days of Moses,
Yeah.
Moshe Rabbeinu, he also couldn't speak properly. What's the connection between these people who can barely talk and end up leading swaths of people?
I think the answer there too is passion and heart. Um, if I think about the King's Speech, right? That was the title of the
The
film.
King's Speech, yeah.
Yeah, if I think about the King's Speech, and I remember over there they show the work, right? They show the work of the speaking coach with the king and all of the non-traditional strategies that he had to help him get through it, right? He had him sway, he had him use different movement techniques
Right.
to get him out of his head, right? He tried to trick his brain to not think about the stammer, to not anticipate that this is coming, right? He tried to find different strategies to distract his mind so that he can get out the words, right?
Sure.
There's a very famous Israeli singer, Yehuda Poliker, whose stammer, came out years after he already had this career, right? He was this accomplished musician, this amazing singer. A lot of people didn't even know about a stammer, and then he came out with it. And nobody knew about it because when he sang, right, he didn't stammer.
I see.
When he was in that zone of passion, the way that the wires were circuiting in his brain allowed him to just get it full out. That's something that's known. It's known not just about this Israeli singer. There's many examples of it, right?
Yeah.
So I think where you're getting to is, sometimes people are monotone. Sometimes people have all kinds of issues with how they speak or their lack of confidence and insecurity. I have people who come to me who can literally throw up before they need to present to the company, or they can have a horrible stomach ache for like a week. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
The key to overcoming it is making peace with yourself. It's also making peace with the fact that you might fall flat on your face. And ironically, the more you make peace with the fact that this isn't going to be perfect, the less you mess up.
Hmm.
The more that it's a process, it takes time, there's no magic pill, yeah?
Yeah.
But the more that you come to terms with the fact that this isn't a test, this isn't, your life's work right now encapsulated in 5 minutes, do or die. This is one of many times that you're going up to speak in front of the company. The more you reframe it as a conversation between you and the audience, an ongoing conversation with the same team you saw yesterday and that you'll see again tomorrow, the easier it is for you to then go up there and say what you want to say without freaking yourself out.
Hmm. I like that. But let me ask you, you've traveled across North America and maybe beyond. You've done this work in multiple countries. Is that true?
I have. My background is in business development. So before I became a storytelling coach, I was actually a presenter, right? I was the head of biz dev. I was responsible for North America and Europe. Those were my regions. I worked at an ad tech company, and one of the things that I had to do there as the head of biz dev is go and present the product, engage people, persuade them, grab their interest. I also worked in the business development side for the performing arts in Israel, and I would work with different theater troupes, dance troupes, to get them engagements across Europe and North America and Asia, other countries as well, not just Europe and North America. And there too, I would have to fly to different countries, speak with different leaders, engage them, and present to them. So that's where all of this started for me, is that before I taught it, I did it. And
You actually did it.
I did
Yeah.
it across the world, yes.
And I know some cultures have their own nuances. I know that I think in China, if you maintain too much eye contact, that could be considered rude. And other cultures, if you're not making eye contact, then that's rude. Or sometimes you take a bow, or you're not supposed to shake the hand. You are supposed to shake the hand. What's the universal similarity that you find teaching what you are teaching around the world? Do we have similarities, or do we have to hone in on these differences before we go to Africa or Asia?
Right. That's a great question. I haven't presented in China, but I have trained in China virtually. I've trained in probably over 12 countries. And while I'm not a cultural expert, and I certainly do not have expertise about the cultural background of every specific country where I train, and what the customs are, and what are the boundaries, and so on and so forth. I do have to work with multicultural and multinational teams all the time, right? I do have companies coming to me saying, we have a site in India, or we have a site in China, or we have a site in Europe, or we have a site in New York. And oftentimes, a particular site might not communicate well with another site. That's something I often see in my work. And when I have to deal with those kinds of differences, I can tell you that no matter the country, no matter the culture, it goes back to the message, right? It goes back to, what
Right.
is it that I'm saying, right? What is my message? Now, even if you're not a native English speaker, as you can imagine, I work with many native English speakers. I also work with many non-native speakers. I got started in this business in Israel, helping Israelis who were presenting both in Hebrew and in English on global stages and in global meetings, right? If your English is good enough to be at that company, it's good enough to present, right? They're not hiring someone who doesn't speak English. And
Right.
so if your language is good enough, the question is, are you focusing on the language gap? Are you focusing on the difference between you and them, you, the presenter, them, the audience? Or are you focusing on what it is you want them to know? What it is you want them to walk away with? Or the $1 million question that I ask my clients every single time I see them: what's the one thing you want them to remember the next day? So if we're focused more on sharpening our message and how we deliver it, we are then more able to transcend these boundaries of culture, of country, of custom, and so forth.
Well, that's a great segue for my last question for you this morning. If a listener only remembers one thing about how they show up in their next presentation, what should it be?
What do you want them to remember? What's the one thing you want them to
That's what I'm
remember?
asking you.
Yes, so that's what I want them to remember. The
Okay.
one thing that I want them to know is to use that same strategy. So don't start with what do I want to say, which is what Everyone does. Everyone starts with the question, what do I want to say? What information do I want to deliver? Instead, I want you to start with, what's the outcome? Right? What's the one thing they do or remember or think about you the day after? 24 hours have passed. They've forgotten 90% of what you said.
Or more.
What's the 10%
Yeah.
that they remember? What are they going to do with it? And that's your starting point. When you define that 10%, you then have to work your way back on, if I know that 10%, if I know that thread that ties it together, how do I start with that thread? How do I hook them? How do I introduce it? How do I make sure that thread is weaved through seamlessly throughout my entire presentation? And so if you start with the outcome instead of what do I want to say, you then are going to develop a story instead of a list of information.
So start with the why and move backwards.
Start with the what do I want them to remember?
What to remember?
What is the outcome?
What's the outcome?
Yes.
Talli, this has been really interesting talk this morning. I want to thank you so much for taking the time, and I look forward to staying in touch with you and seeing how you progress with this storytelling coaching. I think it's incredible.
Thank you so much, Nathan. Thank you for having me. This was so much fun.
Yeah, this was fun. All right, Talli, have a great day, and we'll talk to you next time.
Sounds good.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.